Welcome! My name is Anna Pavlov, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And today I wanted to talk about emotional health and what that looks like and jump a little bit into it because I feel like it doesn't get talked enough in the church. We don't talk too much about the mental health and the emotional health and what that means and looks like in our lives because we know God created us body, soul, and spirit. And all of those elements are important for us to steward, to live that abundant life that Jesus came to give us. And the emotional health, that's where we make the decisions, that's where processes take space, and that's where a lot of life happens. We know that in the word it says, love the Lord with all your heart, all your mind, all your strength, and it captures all three elements of being human. And so when it comes to emotional health, how do we recognize what that is and how do we determine if we're emotionally healthy? Because if we're not, it's hard to have healthy relationships. It's hard to be in ministry. It's hard to do life because we need to steward the temple, which is the physical aspect of being human, which me and my friend Christina will talk about in our next session, but also the emotional health and the mental health. That's also very important because if we struggle physically in our body, we go and see a doctor, or we know that the sensors are going off, that we need to prioritize our medical health right now. But how do we determine if emotional health, when the sensors are going off, and if we need help, or do we need to pay attention? Because God gave us emotions for a reason. They're powerful. They're not meant to lead us though, but they are signals. Just like we have cars and our sensors go off in our cars, we know that if we keep going, something bad will happen or our car will break down essentially. Same thing with our emotions. If we don't pay attention and take the time to go inward and process them, acknowledge them, then also we can explode, we can lose it, we can have unhealthy coping mechanisms in place, we can get defensive, we could have anger and just lash out and lose it. That's one way to put it, because we're all human and we are created body, soul, and spirit. Another thing that's important to maintain with emotional health is the self-awareness piece. If we're not self-aware of what's going on the inside and our motives, right, it's hard to show up in relationships and not take accountability for our actions. And if we can't take accountability, it's hard to have healthy relationships because healthy individuals, we take accountability. And to determine that, that's why it's so crucial for us to take time aside to go inward and ask ourselves, how do I feel? How are you doing, my soul? Even in Psalms, it talks about how David said, why are you downcast, my soul? Put your hope in the Lord. And sometimes practically that's what it looks like to be emotionally healthy, but also it's a space of us to connect deeper in our relationships with God and others. So when we look on emotional health, first of all, first indicator should be that we're healthy because we take time aside, whether that's daily or every other so days, where we go inward and ask and feel and make space for those emotions. There are so many different emotions, and sometimes when we don't take that time, it's hard to communicate to others our needs and what's really happening on the inside because we don't have the words for it to describe it. And so therefore our relationships will also be impacted. If we don't know how to connect with our own selves first, it's hard to show up in our relationships and communicate what's really going on. Another indicator after self-awareness is being honest and truthful with yourself, how you truly feel. Let's do an example of when we get angry, right? We get triggered. That's a signal to ourselves like, hey, why did I lash out or why did I lose it? That's a signal for me to go inward and spend time with myself and seek my heart. What's going on? What happened there? Why anger? And then anger is a primary emotion. That's what we call it in psychology. And then there's the secondary emotions. And when we start going to the root, that's where we could get to really know ourselves. what's really happening underneath, and then we could communicate and show up better in our relationships with others. We're not just numbing through life and going on autopilot. I see that a lot when people don't take the time to acknowledge the emotions, acknowledge their mental health. We're on autopilot, like numbing, avoiding, suppressing things because we didn't take the time to investigate what's going on the inside and sit with ourselves enough to speak to our soul and bring it before the Lord. And so it's healthy when we take time to pour into ourselves, to take time to acknowledge what's going on. It's that verse similar to, search me, O God, and let me know my way. And same thing, that's what we're doing, is really getting to know what's really happening underneath. Because if we're really truthful and honest with ourselves, we become more fruitful in the Holy Spirit because we took the time to look in the mirror. We take the time to acknowledge what's going on. We take the time to validate first ourselves with recognizing, like, this is what's really bothering me, and then sharing that with the people that are in our close circles, because that's another indicator of emotional health, is when we could open up, be vulnerable, and express what's going on in our hearts, in our emotions, and have better connections. So I hope those few elements help. And next week, we're going to go with my friend Christina into the physical health, and we're going to combine it with the mental health, emotional health, and give you a few pointers of how to steward your temple as well on every different level. I hope this video blesses you. If you have any questions, let me know. We would love to address them in our next Tuesday session. And yeah, I hope it blesses you. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in.